Okay guys, so we are on lesson 18. Our aim for today is what is function notation. For our do now, I need you guys to graph this equation y equals to x plus 1. Go ahead and pause the video right now and try to graph it by yourself before I go over it. Okay, it's important that we're trying to do things by ourselves so that we're not completely just copying whatever notes I'm giving you. And if you need the hint, it's right here. I'm going to go ahead and begin plotting. We can use our calculator, or we can also use y equals mx plus b. Okay, so remember the b stands for begin. That is my y-intercept. I'm going to begin at 1 on my y-intercept, and my slope is 1 over 1, which means to go up 1 to the right 1. I'm going to do that and plot the rest of my points. If you do not remember how to use y equals mx plus b, you can definitely just use your calculator, go to y equals, enter your equation, and then press second graph to get your table of values. Okay. Once I'm done, I'm going to connect. Make sure you're using a straight edge so that your lines look nice and pretty. And there you go. That is my equation. Let's answer this follow-up question. Is y equals x plus 1 a function? How do you know? Remember we talked about yesterday that we know something is a function if it passes the vertical line test, which means that if I can draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph and it hits the graph at only one point, it is going to be a function. So take a look. No matter where I am drawing the vertical line, I'm only hitting my equation or my line at most at one point. So I'm going to say that this is a function because it passes the vertical line test. Okay, is everybody okay with that? This is a function. It's the most important part about what we're doing today. Once I realize that the graph of my equation is a function, I can go ahead and say that, well, since it's a function, I can rewrite this, okay? So instead of saying y, here's all we're going to do. Instead of saying y, we're going to say this is a function. It is a function of x. That's what this stands for. F of x means it is a function of x. And my function rule is x plus 1. Okay, so we're going to plug into our function. F of 1 is going to be, instead of my x value, so let me change that to brown so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to replace my x value with 1. That's going to be 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. And let's take a look at where that is on my graph. When x is equal to 1, my y value is 2. That's that point right there, 1, 2. Right, my x value and my y value, my input and my output. Okay, let's do this again. F of 2, so instead of x, I'm plugging in 2. And then I'm going to copy down the rest of the rule. 2 plus 1 gives me 3. And let's see where that falls on my graph. When my input value is 2, my output value is 3. So that's 2, 3. And then one more, let's do this. F of 0, so instead of x, I'm plugging in 0, and I'm going to say that's plus 1. Plug this into your calculator or do it in your head. 0 plus 1 is 1. And on my graph, let's identify that point. When x is equal to 0, my y value is 1. That's right there. Okay, so that's how we can identify something from a graph and an equation as well. So let's try one more practice problem together. If g of x is defined as g of x equals to 2x plus 15, so all this is saying is that this is a function. So what is the function going to give me when my x value is negative 3? Here's my x. I'm going to copy over my entire expression, so 2x plus 15. And then instead of x, I'm replacing it with my input. And for this case, they want your input to be -3. So go ahead, we can take out our calculator. We can input this into our calculator. I'm just going to do this in my head. Please check my math for me. When I input -3, my output is going to be 9. So if I were to graph this, what this tells me is that it's going to land on the point -3, 9. Input, output. Okay, let's move on. Go ahead and take a second and try the U-try. You can pause the video here if you are having difficulty. Try to do it by yourself first, and then I will go over it, but obviously the way to learn is to try to do things by yourself. Okay, I am ready. Let's do this. So for this next one, I have h of x, and it doesn't really matter what that letter is, right? All it's saying is that this is a function. We're calling it h of x. I'm plugging in an x value. And what I'm going to do to that x value is I'm going to square it, and then I'm going to -2. So when I plug in h of 4, this becomes 4 squared minus 2. Plug it into your calculator. H of 4 is equal to 14. Please make sure you are always plugging in with parentheses. Let's do this next one. H of -1. So that's -1 squared. Squared minus 2. And that gives you h of -1. So when I plug in -1, my output is going to be -1. Okay, the rest of this page is practice. Please go ahead and try it. If you have any questions, you can feel free to send me an email, comment below on the video, or you can also text me through the Remind app. I will be posting an answer key to this on my website where you can find it, but please again try to do these problems by yourself first. Okay, let's go over these practice problems together. Number 1, we're given a graph, and it says the graph is the graph of the function f, okay? So they want us to find f of -1, meaning when my input is -1, what is my output going to be? So I know inputs are my x values. I'm going to look on my x-axis. I'm going to locate -1 on my x-axis. That's right here. And I want to know on my graph, when I plug in -1, what do I get? I get this point right here. That's the point, -1, 1. So when I plug in -1, my output is going to be 1. Okay, let's try that with B. What is my output when my input is 1? So again, my x value is 1. So I'm going on my x-axis to 1. That's right here. And I want to go up and down until I find the y value that works. That's going to be 3, because this is the point 1, 3. C. I want to know what is my output when my input or my x value is 3. So I'm going to go over to 3 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to go up or down until I find the y value that the graph will give me. Notice it is not this point because this is an open circle. Remember, open circles are not included in our solution set. I'm going to have to keep on going until I hit this point. This is the point 3, 4, which means that when my input is 3, my output is 4. D says, find the value of x for which f of x is equal to 3. So this one we kind of have to do the opposite of what we've been doing, right? I'm looking for the x value. I know the y value. So I'm going to start off by going on my y-axis this time. We're going to look on our y-axis, and I want to know, when is my y going to be 3? There's actually 3 points. I kind of messed up here, guys. I'm going to go across until I hit a point. So notice this point right here works, but that's a decimal, so I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use this one right here. This is the point 1, 3. So when x is equal to 1, my output will be 3. That's all that means. Let's do some plugging in. They give me 3 different functions, so we have to be careful about which one we are going to use. let me highlight them in different colors. So f of x, g of x, and h of x. So the first one I notice I'm using the function h, right? So I'm going to be using the function h, which is h of x equals to the square root of x minus 5. Remember, all we are doing is replacing our x with whatever number they gave us, or whatever value they give us. So the square root of, and instead of x, I'm going to put in 41 in parentheses. Remember, we always plug in using parentheses. So h of 41, you can go ahead and plug this into your calculator. I get the square root of, I can't even do any math right now, 36. H of 41, meaning when I plug in 41 into my function h, I will get 6. If we plug this into your calculator, you skip this middle step. But I'm doing it by in my head. All right, next one is the function f. So I'm going to be making sure that I am using my f function. Okay, so f of negative 5 is going to be 3 x squared minus 5 all over 4 times x plus 10. Plug in negative 5, plug in negative 5. Remember, to get a fraction on our calculator, we are going to use alpha y equals. Okay, so press alpha y equals, enter this whole thing, and then you're going to get an answer. F of negative 5 equals to blank. You guys help me out. I don't have a calculator. All right, the next one is g of negative 3, so we are using our function named g. Let's do that. So g of negative 3 equals, I have the square root on top of 25 minus x squared all over x. Remember, anywhere I have x, I'm just replacing it with whatever input value they're giving us, and I got negative 3. Okay, so again, we're going to use alpha y equals so we can get the fraction bar. G of negative 3 is equal to blank. Once I'm done making this video, I'll get a calculator and I'll calculate all these numbers and post an answer key for you guys to check your work at home. Okay, h of x. So we're finding h of 14. We're going to be using our h function. So h of 14 is going to be the square root of 14 minus 5. Again, instead of x, we're replacing it with our number. So h of 14 equals blank. Please find that number. Next one is g. So g of 4, when my input is 4 for the function g, I'm going to plug that in, 25 minus x squared over x. So I always like to replace my x values with parentheses first. That way I don't confuse myself about where I'm inputting and whether or not I need to use parentheses. If I always do it first, I promise you I will not mess up. All right, and one more, f of 0. So f of 0, again, I'm going to just copy over my function without the x's. So instead of the x's, I'm replacing it with parentheses. I'm replacing them with 0. So what you're going to do now is get your calculator and plug in this number. Just make sure your setups are correct. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so we're back to reading graphs, and notice we keep on interchanging between graphs and equations because we have to be able to master both. Evaluate g of negative 2. Let's do that first. G of negative 2. That means when my x value is negative 2, what is my output? What is my y value? So I'm going to go locate negative 2, 1, 2. And then remember, we go up and down to find the y value. And that's right here because this is the point, negative 2, negative 3. So my input is negative 2. My output is negative 3. Okay, let's try the next one. G of 0. So when my x value is 0, what is my y value? 0, meaning we are not going to move left or right. This is already 0 at the origin. We're just going to go down, and I have the point 0, -3. So g of 0 is also going to give me -3. Let's do g of 3. G of 3, so I'm going to go on my x-axis. Oh, I shouldn't have drawn a point. And I'm going to go to find 3. Here's 3, and now I'm going to go up. And that gives me the point 3, 4. Meaning when my input is 3, my output is 4. And last but not least, I have g of 7. So when my input is 7, when my x value is 7, let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What is my output? I actually don't have to move up and down. I've already hit my graph. When my x value is 7, my y value is 0. Okay, I'm going to erase it so I can do the next problem. You guys don't have to erase it. Leave it on your paper. I just want it to be as not confusing for you as possible. Question B says, what values of x solve the equation g of x equals to 0? So they're giving you your output right now. I know my y value is 0. Which x values will give us that? Well, actually, if I take a look, one of my values is g of 7, right? That's this point right here, 7, 0. When x is equal to 7, my y value is 0. So that's one of my values. The other values I have are, let's start all the way from the left side, this point right here. When x is -3, my y value is 0. So x equals to -3 is another solution that works. I have one right here. This is the point 1, 0. When x is equal to 1, my y value is 0. And last but not least, this one right here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 0. So when x is equal to 5, my output is also 0. All right, question C. Graph the horizontal line y equals to 2. So y equals to 2 is this point right here. I mean this line right here. And let me label it. Y equals 2. How many values of x solve the equation g of x equals to 2? So how many values solve this equation? So how many different x values will give me an output of 2? I don't need to know the values. I just need to know how many. So here's 1. Here's 2. Here's 3. And here's 4. So there are 4 values. All right. Let's take a look at number 5. If f of x is equal to, these are absolute values symbols, x cubed minus 3, then f of -1 is equivalent to, so again, we're just going to say f of -1 equals the absolute value of, instead of x, I'm replacing with parentheses, -3, close my absolute values, and now I'm going to plug in -1. Okay, all you're going to do is plug this into your calculator. This is a lot of calculator work, guys. If you do not remember how to get absolute value, in your calculator, we press math, and then we use the arrow key to go over to number, and I believe it was number 1 that says ABS. So you're looking for absolute value, and it should give you the bars, and you're just going to plug in what was on the inside. It should pop out and give you one of these answer choices. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, but also not really, okay? Number 6, if f of x equals to 2x plus 3, find f of 3. So f of 3 is equal to, so again, I'm just going to copy over the equation, and I'm going to replace my x with parentheses. And then I'm plugging in 3. Easy, right? So we're just going to enter that into our calculator. You guys are going to give me a final answer. Your paper should not be blank. You got to do some work. Okay, wait. This part, look. Here's something new now. I'm plugging in a number. A variable. We've never done that before, but it's the same exact thing. F of A. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy this over and put parentheses where my x is. But instead of x this time, I'm plugging in a. Okay, so now let's distribute. This is 2a plus 3. There are no like terms to combine, so f of a is equal to 2a plus 3. Easy. Okay, let's do the same thing now. I'm plugging in m plus 1. I want to know what is f of m plus 1. So I'm going to copy this, 2 times parentheses plus 3. And I'm going to put in m plus 1 because that is my input. Let's distribute. 2m plus 2 plus 3. And now we combine like terms. That's positive 5 and bring down my 2m. So f of m plus 1 is equal to 2m plus 5. If you needed help with these, go ahead and try D by yourself before we go over it. You can pause the video. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to copy this over. Instead of x, I'm replacing with parentheses plus 3. And we are plugging in 5m minus 3. We're going to go ahead and distribute. That gives you 10m minus 6 plus 3. Let's combine like terms. Negative 6 and positive 3. That gives you a negative 3. We're going to bring down our 10m. So f of 5m minus 3 equals to 10m minus 3. That's it, guys. We do have homework today, so please try homework number 18. Notice there are 3 different functions, so be careful which one you are using, okay? Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.